Welcome back to another episode of the Josh Hall podcast. And today I'm talking to my sister and her husband.
Hello.
Say hello.
Hi.
Hi.
And this is my sister Katie and her husband Jared. And I'm over at their house with my actually quite portable podcast setup. I did not. I mean, I knew I could move it around, but I've recorded at my house now. I've recorded at my office now. Mm-hmm. Now I've recorded over here. So it's great.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Pretty fast. Pretty easy.
Give us a quick story. Give us the quick story of how you met. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that today is the 2 year
2 years
anniversary of something, but I forget what it is. So
yes.
Could you please tell us the story of that?
Yes. Do you want me to tell it, Jared?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We met 2 years ago in December. So 2 years ago from December, at Swing Dance in Taylor's, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then we started talking at Swing Dance every week, and I liked him a little bit, I guess. And he realized I liked him, and then he realized he liked me back. And then I kind of made the first move a little bit by telling him that school was having an event coming up, and I had an extra ticket because he had told me he wanted to go to that event.
What event was this?
This was the Beauty and the Beast play.
Artist series.
Yes.
Artist series of 2023.
Yes. So I went ahead and got tickets really early for that artist series because I was either going to go with a friend or a date or somebody, and I wanted good seats because I was excited about it. So I got tickets like 3 months in advance.
Just like 2 tickets.
Yeah.
So you were like, I'm filling the seat with someone.
Yeah. Well, it's either going to be me and like my best friend or me and somebody else, you know. You never know. So
you never know. It's a good, hopeful way to live.
So I was talking to Jared, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I really wanted to go to that artist series." And at this point, most of the tickets were already bought. So I told him, I was like, unfortunately, I think it's probably almost sold out. But I have an extra ticket if you want to go with me. And he was like, okay. He was like, yeah, I might do that. And then he ended up messaging me on Instagram and asked me out, sort of, by asking if he could bring me coffee on campus.
That was, as the kids say, sliding in the DMs.
Yes.
So you just said, hello, my friend from swing dancing. May I bring you some coffee?
Yes. It was probably the word acquaintance that I use. Hello, acquaintance.
Oh, right. Oh my goodness.
So why did you say yes?
I thought he was interesting. He was... Well, okay,
That's a good start.
I'm like...
A word to all the young men out there.
Be interesting, everyone.
He wasn't too extreme in any way, which I liked, because I'm pretty middle ground, I think, in most things as far as, like, my Christianity and my political views and just a lot of things. I'm pretty middle ground. So a lot of guys I knew at the time...
So you had talked a lot at this point?
Yes, we talked at Swing Dance
before the...
First date.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So, found out he pretty much had the same values as me from what I could tell, and I thought he was cute. So, I said, sure, you can meet me on campus.
So today is the 2 year anniversary of the coffee?
Yes.
Or of Beauty and the Beast? The coffee?
Yes, of the coffee.
Got it.
By the time Beauty and the Beast actually rolled around, we were official boyfriend-girlfriend.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast was the last week of March in 2023.
Yeah.
Was it really? Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess they usually do this later. That makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so today is 2 years since our first date.
Today is the anniversary of that picture that you sent earlier.
Yes.
So there's this picture that apparently, or this short video clip that got sent to me. This is back when Katie was a student at Bob Jones, and I was also a student. And somebody texted me this clip of Katie hanging out with this guy, and they were like, like, oh, I saw your sister talking to some guy, and I was like, I know nothing about that, and I was like, I don't even remember who sent it to me now, but you still have it. You still have the clip.
I still have that. At first, we weren't very happy about it. We were like, who in the world took a picture of us on our first day and sent it to my brother?
But now you have a picture. And
right.
How cool is that?
You're saying that today. I was like, I'm kind of glad. Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know who that was.
Yeah.
Which seems weird, but anyways, cool. So then you lived happily ever after, or?
Yeah, pretty much. From that point on, we hung out like every single day, and there were a few weeks early on where I wasn't so sure if I was actually gonna follow through with this or not. I almost broke it up a few times, and then I realized that would actually be really stupid, and
Jared nods vigorously.
And yeah, from then on, it was just kind of a, I don't know.
So what would you say to people who are thinking about breaking things off? Early on.
What would you say to people?
I would say it depends on your reasons, first of all, because there are certainly legitimate concerns going into a new relationship. Definitely if you're in a place where you are healing from a previous relationship, just tread carefully. But there is just that inevitable ebb and flow with relationships where you're going to feel uneasy about it. Even the people that date for extended periods of time have those moments where they're unsure. But ultimately, it's a question of if and when you face obstacles with this person, because you will, is it worth it to work together to resolve that obstacle? And is that even feasible? Because if it's not, then you have your answer.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would say, if you're thinking about breaking things off, just make sure it's not getting in your own head about it. Because that's what would happen with me. I would get in my own head about him actually wanting to date me. Like, I'd be like, I don't think he actually cares about me, or he actually wants to date me. And so then I would go to see him. And there was one time I almost broke up with him, and I met up with him, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh my goodness, because he kind of knew I was gonna break up with him. He was pale, and it looked like he was gonna throw up. I was like, wait, he actually really cares about me. And then I realized I didn't want to break up with him.
And then they lived happily ever after?
Yes.
No, that's great. So how long have you been married now for?
8 months.
We just hit 8 months of marriage on Saturday.
Okay. Yeah. And I remember now you moved your wedding up a little earlier than later. Because you were planning on getting married in this last October.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you moved it to June.
Yep.
Remind me the reason for that?
So we got engaged on our 1 year of dating, which was 1 year ago today. So today is 2 years of dating, 1 year of being engaged. So we got engaged in February last year, and then it was March or April when we just realized October was really far away. And there was no reason to wait all the way until October, because we were both ready to get married. We had been through counseling before we were even engaged. That was just really good for us. And I was living with a family at the time, so I wasn't really settled anywhere. I was just kind of hanging out in this family's house, which they're the best family. It was fine. But so I was ready to get settled. And we were just ready to be married. So we talked to a bunch of people, and everybody was like, yeah, if you're ready, you should just get married sooner. We're like, okay. No one told us that they thought we should wait.
Yeah.
Which I think was a good sign. Our parents were both like, yeah, if you're ready, then you should just get married. And some of the people at church that we are good friends with said the same thing. And I was actually getting my hair done when I was like really thinking about seriously asking Jared if we could get married sooner. And my hairdresser was like, girl, she was like, just do it. Just get married sooner. You're not going to regret it. We did the same thing, and just get married sooner. So
Advice of the hairdresser.
yes, so that's when we
great.
went and talked to all of our wise voices in our life and
Yeah.
decided to move it to June.
Cool.
Any thoughts? Any words?
No, yeah. I mean, we were just in a place of, finding that balance of, we're trying to be established in where we're at, but how established do we actually need to be
Right.
to start a life together? And we definitely got to the point where we were like, well, financially it makes sense. And after that, like, it was just pretty amazing how every single detail just fell into place because of God's hand in it.
Well, and it just felt so like almost torture because you're in this in-between state of like, okay, well, we're not dating anymore, but we're not married yet. So we just want to be together all the time, but we still have to like go back to our homes and I don't know,
Yeah.
do other things,
Just feel
and we
pulled
can't
apart.
just
Yeah.
right. You have to still have that intentionality, and like, which you always have to be intentional, but you have to have that extra time almost to make time to go see the other person because we were also like 30 minutes away from each other, instead of just doing life with them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it just felt very long, and it was like, if we don't need to wait this long, why are we waiting this long? That doesn't make any sense.
Jared, you had been out of school for how long?
So I finished up my undergrad from Bob Jones University in May of 2021. And I had been working full time since that year. And I had actually been going to swing dancing for almost a year when Katie and I started talking seriously. So it had been a couple years since I
Okay.
graduated.
And you'd just been working.
Yep, I'd just been working.
You said a minute ago that it was financially it made sense or something. And so I was thinking about that because like, I don't think everybody's in a position to just get married like right out of school, but you had been out working for a while, which I'm sure helped with that kind of thing. Right? Which
Yeah.
is great. Which is awesome.
It definitely did. I think in a lot of our Christian circles, we find that couples want to get married immediately after college, which is good, and God certainly does open the doors for that. But sometimes it's okay to just take a deep breath and see what doors He's going to open in your life first. And I mean, for me, like, so much of my faith walk really grew in the couple years of singleness I had after graduating. So it was a good season, and it did ultimately financially prepare me too. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow up with that. Why did you grow so much in those years?
well, this might just, I'm sure this applies to multiple people, but for me, I grew up in the context of Bob Jones. All my life, I went there for kindergarten all the way through undergrad, and that was really all I had ever known. And as much of a blessing as it was to have spiritual roots and spiritual foundations, I definitely had more opportunity to, explore more of Christianity in a new light after leaving Bob Jones. And obviously, the people at Bob Jones love the Lord, and but for the most part, they believe similar things.
Sure.
to each other. And I had just a number of encounters with other Christians that weren't from the Bob Jones circles, and they just really invested in me and impacted me, and ultimately,
almost.
yeah, definitely gave me a new perspective on the church and the diversity of the church, and it really did spearhead me towards a new path of growth.
That's great. So you studied music at BJ, correct?
Yes.
And now you are working on your master's, if I'm not mistaken, at Liberty in music.
Yes.
Why did you study music, and what has brought you back around to it?
That is a great question, and it's something that I often ask myself. But an answer I'll provide, and it's probably an answer still in the works as I continue to flesh it out. But definitely studied music in undergrad because I had grown up around music all my life. My dad's mother is a very accomplished musician, and so music was just kind of always in the family. And I started playing my first instrument, the violin, when I was in first grade, and music just became such a significant part of my life in so many different ways. And by the time I got to undergrad, it was time to, declare a major, and there were so many things I was interested in. And, but really what I just kept coming back to is, music was familiar to me. I knew that God had given me, to some extent, a gifting in that area, and I just wanted to really pursue that and develop it, and see where he would take me with it. So then after that, obviously everybody has the stereotype, and it's a correct stereotype, that musicians don't usually make a whole lot of money right after undergrad. So as a fallback, I took a lot of other classes in different academic concentrations, a lot of business classes. I took some accounting, graphic design, things like that, just to make myself a little more marketable. And that did lead to me landing a full-time job in the human resources area, which is where I've been ever since.
Did you get the job because of some classes you had taken?
It was, if I had to say, I think it was probably a combination of the jobs I worked on campus during undergrad.
Oh.
And some of the classes that I had taken.
Okay. Like ushering?
Yes. So I was an usher from spring of my freshman year to the end of my senior year. Got to be on the leadership team in my last year, which was a great opportunity, and I did learn a lot from that. But I also did work in the career services department.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So I worked as a student career mentor.
Okay.
So I would assist students with resume writing, interview preparation, job searching, internship searching, things like that.
So did you get the job, was there a connection there between your first HR job and the career center at BJ?
No, there was not like a direct connection as far as like a referral or anything like that. Actually, this company that I ended up working for had really no affiliation with Bob Jones whatsoever.
Okay.
But they just liked a lot of the soft skills that I had been developing.
I see.
Some of the skills, you did a lot of hiring for usher crew, right? You helped with that?
Yeah.
Which is what HR is a lot of hiring
and
firing and sorting through resumes. So since he'd built resumes, you were equipped to sort through resumes as an HR person. Just those sorts of things. HR is very technical with like I said, hiring, firing,
Right,
emails,
right.
all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. So, Katie, you studied art,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, and still are
Yes.
in your current degree.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So I went to Bob Jones for a year plus 1 semester, so 3 semesters total. And when I was there, I studied fine art, so painting, drawing, specifically, that was our cat, if you heard that.
Hello there, little Sook. Come here.
Specifically, I was a studio art major, so like I said, hands-on painting, drawing type of things, and I loved it. I really loved the academic side of school, but some of the other sides of school were just not for me, and so I transferred after my 3rd semester and am now online with Southern New Hampshire University studying graphic design. And I switched to graphic design because online you can't study art, obviously, because you're online. But
Fair.
yes.
I have wondered about that once or twice.
Yes. So, but also graphic design is a lot more marketable, and it's a smarter choice financially, and there's a very broad number of different types of jobs you can get with it. So that was all very attractive to me.
Why were you interested in art?
That's a good question. I have always loved the visual aspect of life and just seeing beautiful things, and something about creating something beautiful was always very satisfying to me. In high school, I started to create a lot, and I found out not only was it satisfying, but I seemed to be pretty good at it, I guess. At least everyone told me I was, so that's always tricky to know if people are just being nice or not. But
How do you know?
You don't.
What's a good way to tell?
You go to your most brutal professor and you say, "How much do you hate this?" and then you let them tell you.
And then you cry for an hour.
The
No,
truth
that actually
hurts.
never happened. But I actually did go to one of my teachers once with a painting. It's actually the painting I gave to you. It's the painting. It's like a fire with
yes,
the people
yes,
and the
yes.
trees. Yeah. And I asked her what she thought of it, and she said that she thought it was good, and that...
Oh, I thought you were going to say that you went to your professor and showed them a painting and they said it was terrible, and then you gave it to me.
No.
Here you go.
No.
I know just what to do with this one.
No, she said she really liked it, and that I needed to... That she gave me a couple of pointers to work on, but overall she said that she thought I was on a good track. So that was encouraging.
That's good. Did that only happen one time?
As far as me taking personal work to a teacher, yeah, but
Okay. Oh, this is like
within-
personal work, not
yeah,
like...
this was like
I
a
got
thing
you.
I
I
made.
understand.
But within classes, you can kind of tell, like, we do critiques, and you can kind of tell where yours lands amongst the class. There was definitely always people, of course, who were way better than I would be, but I wasn't the worst, I don't think.
Yeah,
So.
that's good. Not quite the worst, not quite the best. Just a good solid middle.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for like good art,
Mm-hmm.
where do you go? Like, how? Like, where are some places where you can find like? Do you understand what I'm asking? Like,
Yeah. Like, art that actually is well done and
yeah.
it draws you in.
Do you have any? Like, do you have like?
A specific
Do you have like
place?
I don't know, like artists that you like, or do you have like places that you
Yeah.
like, or?
No, I really don't, actually. I don't have, like, a place that I go to see good art or artists that I follow. I think my favorite artist of all time is Monet, which I know is kind of cliche, but
Why is it? What? Tell me about Monet.
he studied color and light a lot. So he would do, I'm pretty sure, don't fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure his lily pad painting, he did a bunch of renditions of it in different lightings at different times of day.
Okay.
So part of being an artist is most people I know who are good artists really love light, and they love studying how light affects the world. And that's really what art, well, okay, I can't say that. You can't really define art. But an aspect of art is all about how light affects everything. And everything we see is based off light, how much light it absorbs, how much light it reflects. And so light's just very important. So he did a lot of studies that had to do with light.
What's the best Monet painting?
I don't know yet. He made a lot.
Well, like, what's your favorite one?
I don't think I have one.
Well, how can he be your favorite if you don't have a
seen them
favorite?
all.
Well, of all the ones that you have seen.
I really like, I forget the name of it. I really like the one of the lady on the hill he painted. It's his wife, and there's a little child beside of her that is his child. What is that called? What is that painting called? I'm forgetting. I forget, but her hair is
I think I know.
in the wind.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. What is the name of the painter who would paint? He did a lot with like light and darkness. He was like Dutch or something.
When was he around?
Rembrandt. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, Rembrandt.
Yeah. What do you think of Rembrandt?
I think he's really good. He obviously he painted that.
Yeah, not really a big fan.
He's okay. Mid.
He did that painting of the boat where there's the figure in the boat that like looks at you. The way it's facing in the painting is looking at you. And I forget why it's significant, but I did read about it once. But it's significant for a reason. So if you want to know, then go look it up. And you can find out why it's significant, because I don't remember.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know a lot about art and all the famous artists, but I do know some that I like. Like I like Rembrandt's paintings. I like Van Gogh's paintings.
Do you know about Van Gogh?
What
About
do you
his
mean?
life.
I know that he was like deaf or something and kind of crazy or something.
He was definitely crazy. People think that he went crazy because he would
like paint.
lick his
Heard
paintbrushes. So
this.
oil paint has lead in it, specifically. Well, I'm pretty sure back then all of them had lead, but I know for sure that white paint has the most.
Like lead paint. Like that's like a thing.
Yeah. So what a lot of artists used to do before they realized it was dangerous to do so is they would lick the end of their paintbrush to get a fine tip before putting like paint on it and brushing. So obviously there's going to be still paint on the end of the brush. So they were eating paint. And if they were painting every day in their studio, they were eating paint every single day. And the theory is, I don't think it's been proven, but the theory is that some of them painters from a long time ago went crazy because of the lead in the paint.
Well, even the fumes, right?
Yeah.
Like paint fumes, if you're just breathing it in all day, that probably
it's
is
very
bad in and of
toxic.
itself. Yeah.
So he didn't go deaf, but he did cut off his ear got cut off somehow.
Okay. Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
And then he lived in an asylum. And most of Van Gogh's paintings were done while he was in the asylum.
Like
So
Starry
when you see his
Night,
paintings,
for instance?
I don't know if that one was. I'm pretty
famous one?
sure a lot of his still lifes were done in the asylum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like him because he's just, his look different than everyone else's.
Yeah.
You know,
it's very
like some,
interesting.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of art history and stuff that I don't know about, but Van Gogh's always just kind of popped out to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like colorful and like bright. Some of his paintings feel very like poppy. I don't know if that makes
And
sense.
he uses very small brush strokes. You've noticed that? A lot of
I
his
have not.
paintings. Like with Starry Night, you can see like each individual stroke sometimes with his paintings. And
Yeah, I need to take an art history class. I think I would love it.
yeah, it's very interesting.
I do love art in its own way. Can you give us? So I know that modern art is a controversial topic.
Mm-hmm.
So can you help us understand what it is and why some of it is not terrible? if that's a thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So with art, it's such a big world that everybody thinks like, okay, for art to be good, it has to meet this standard. And that's not always true, because with art, you have different purposes for different types of art. So some art is, okay, let's say you have realism. So a realistic art piece is supposed to look realistic, right?
So like I'm painting this apple and I want it to look like an apple.
Yes, I want it to look as real and as identical to this apple as it possibly can look.
And then photography came along and ruined that.
Yeah. And so that the generic person is going to look at art, and the more realistic it looks, the better it is in their mind.
Okay.
So that's not necessarily true, because I actually think realism is easier than a lot of art forms. It's easier for me because you're just copy pasting what you see.
Okay.
Basically. But okay, so you have other types of art. So you have impressionism, which is sort of like realism, but you are making a piece of art that looks like a painting, and it's not identical to what you're seeing. It's an impression of it. So when you think of Monet, that type of art, that's impressionism. It's not realistic. It's not supposed to be realistic, but you can still see what it is, and it still looks like a painting. And yeah, it got very, very popular about 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
Okay, let's take a little rabbit trail. So
yeah,
impressionism, what are you trying to do? What's the goal with impressionism? Besides giving an impression of something.
Right.
Are you like trying to like get, is it more emotional?
It's not really more emotional. We're getting to that. It's more of a take, I think it's more of a take on light and color, and I think it's just more of a stylistic thing.
Okay.
I don't really know if there's a specific purpose behind it, but I know it came about, I think it was the 1800s, and at first it was very, very laughed at, because in their day and age, all of like the Renaissance type paintings were like the really, really good paintings.
Okay.
So when they saw these impressionistic artwork pieces, they were like, looks like it's not finished. So they laughed at it because they said, this art is unfinished art, this is stupid, throw it away. And now it's one of the most popular forms of art. Yeah, but I don't know if there's really a specific purpose behind impressionism. I'd have to look into that more, because I'm not sure.
Okay, so then what came? So we were talking about modern art.
Yes, so then you get into, I might be skipping over some things, but you get into like Picasso and the very, very abstract, weirder looking art. And this is getting into art that's supposed to make you feel a certain way when you look at it. Not really supposed to be the most visually pleasing. So
okay, so is that a good way to start thinking about modern art?
Yes.
Don't think of it as like trying to figure out the picture.
Yeah.
Think of it as like, this is supposed to make me feel like something.
So right. So I forget the right
Very
term for it, but that type of art, the artist has an emotion, and they put that emotion on the canvas with the goal of anybody else who looks at this canvas feels the same emotion that I was feeling when I put it on there. So not everyone's successful with that, obviously, and not all modern art does that. I think the art that people do nowadays, like on Instagram, where they like throw paint on a canvas and say, wow, look at this beautiful thing I made.
Yeah.
I feel like that's stupid. I mean,
have you seen the ones where it's like the bucket and they like poke holes in the bottom of the paint bucket and they swing it back and forth? Yeah.
Which that makes a cool design. So it's more of like, I'm making a cool design. I don't know if you know those old things you can use where it's like a wheel. Yeah, like and you put a pencil in it, and then you turn it, and it makes like this cool shape. It's like kind of like that. It just makes a cool shape. But it's not really, I wouldn't really call it art because it
Art.
doesn't really require the same skills. Right, Jared?
Yeah.
Well, so I was going to make a tie-in here with contemporary music.
Yeah.
Is it a similar thing going on?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
oh man. Contemporary music opens up a whole can of worms because obviously within art you have different media, different styles, different artists with their own unique goals they're trying to accomplish. For music, more or less, you're trying to create something that is pleasing to the ear. However, I will say as an aside that the music theorists and composers of the 20th century wanted to compose music in a way that made it extremely mathematical, very, very organized, at the expense of how pleasing it was to the ear. So there are a number of composers, and you can get into all the theory, and it hurts your brain the way they figured it out. But you have a number of composers like Schoenberg, and I'd say he's probably the most notable one that really just transformed music. And he used this system called 12-tone serialism, which is basically where you compose a piece of music, you had to use all 12 notes that would be present in an octave, and which obviously in a typical major or minor scale you have 7 distinct notes and then the octave of the repeated note
Right.
as the final note.
Right.
With 12-tone serialism, you have to have every note within the octave, half steps included.
Okay.
And you compose the piece by basically a random, sometimes they had a pattern to it, sequence of these notes. But the catch was that you couldn't repeat any notes until you had used all 12.
Okay, I've heard of this somewhere. Yes.
So what it did, obviously, there was no key at that point. And it was just something that in that time they were really just trying to attribute music to other aspects of our reality, and it didn't work. Another notable example is John Cage. Everybody knows
Yes.
about his 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yes. Where they don't play anything and they just listen to the audience sit there in
Yes.
silence. Yeah.
So
Oh, that's so weird.
his implication was that every performance of that quote unquote piece would be different. And he was trying to prove that music is all around us and music is constantly changing. So all that to say, contemporary music is that's a whole different school of thought. After they did that in the early to mid 20th century, you had the rise of a lot more secular genres, with the introduction of jazz
Right.
and rock, and then eventually pop, R&B, hip hop, rap entered the scene. So we really don't hear a whole lot about that more mathematical approach that was characteristic.
Well, I was thinking. So we were just talking about, the paint buckets on Instagram, which make a cool design, but aren't really like the art. Is not really the artistry. And I think could you make a parallel to like a lot of pop music that it's kind of like paint buckets on a rope, where it's like it's easy to do and it makes a cool sound. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But it's kind of a cheapened version of
no, absolutely.
what music was meant to be.
And you could probably explain it different ways depending on how strong of a musical purist you are, especially if you're classically trained. But most musicians tend to frown upon, if they're classically trained, they tend to frown upon a lot of modern pieces of music in general, across multiple genres, because of the repetitive nature, how anticipatory it is, how short the pieces are. A big common complaint you would hear is that, you know, such and such a genre only uses the same 4 chords in a chord progression multiple times. I wouldn't fall that hard on to that extreme, because even within these chord progressions that are repeated, there are still so many textures and nuances that you can change and still make it original.
Right.
But there are certain genres, I'd say hip hop being the biggest one, where it doesn't really require a whole lot of creativity or forethought. You can just kind of throw it all in a blender, and whatever you get comes out.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because, you know, like you said a minute ago, it doesn't mean that these genres are bad, or that like painting that way is bad. And like, if you enjoy it, that's great. But it's important to remember that there's more to, like, there's a lot more to the art form than just that.
It doesn't require the most skill.
Right.
And that's the deal with the painting. It doesn't require a lot of skills to make a cool design, to throw paint on a canvas, but it does require skill to create a work of art that actually is meaningful, that's well done. So the same with music, I think.
Well, so like, let me ask you this, Jared. So do you think that the greats of our day, like Taylor Swift, or I don't know, name any of the, like, who's performing at the Super Bowl? Kendrick Lamar is performing at the Super Bowl. Like, are these people actually great talents, or are they propped up by the industry? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's a good question too. I think it depends on who the artist is, because a lot of times people forget that these musicians are pop stars. Pop being short for popular.
I think we do forget. Sometimes I remember that. I'm like, that literally just means popular music.
Right. And so what it does is, you have a lot of really talented artists out there. Taylor Swift, whether you like her or not, she's really talented. She is originally a pretty much self-taught singer-songwriter. She really began her career as a more or less acoustic country singer,
right?
And you know, now she's this pop giant. But then, even still, there are musicians, like, I think of another good example is Panic at the Disco.
Yep. Brendon
Urie. He is a very, very talented singer, but he doesn't really write his own songs.
Interesting.
So you have a lot of people behind the scenes as part of the production team, and even part of the creative process, that are actually coming up with the lyrics.
Yeah.
And you do have the talent that then they prop up with their music.
Right. So it's kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to really get famous, to really get big, if you don't have some sort of talent there to some extent.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of like with being
way.
an artist, like, you can't really, like, you have to have some sort of talent to do something.
Right. To become big. Yeah.
But even though there's still, like we talked about, cheap versions of things and greater versions of things.
I feel like a good parallel would be to some popular music with artists would be like a movie that's an animated movie where you have, maybe this is more extreme, but you have a ton of people working on this movie, and every single person plays a small role, and then
you're saying that pop music is like that now a little bit.
A little bit. It can be.
Because
Like,
the team's so big.
Yeah, you have all
I
these
see.
writers, you have all these producers, you have all of the music writers, the lyric writers, and then the musician will just perform it.
Right.
And they might write some of their own stuff sometimes, but
Well, it's cool now. Like with social media now, there's the opportunity for, like, we've kind of come back around where like the little guy has a voice now. Like, and so if you are that little singer songwriter like Taylor Swift was, you know, you can put your own stuff up and you can get big, and then you can go become a giant and have your production team and whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty neat.
I think when it comes down to it, with both visual and audio arts, because we're talking about it's both art. I think ultimately, really what distinguishes the quality is how much intentionality went into it. I mean, that's not to say that you couldn't, like, try and
still create something terrible.
and create something terrible,
right.
Well,
Well, that makes sense.
but I think that the best artists, and even the ones that have had the biggest impacts throughout the centuries, both with like the painters that we've mentioned, and even with the different composers like Mozart and Bach, especially, they really made an impact because of their intentionality in wanting to change the model. But they still had purpose in their artistry.
That made me think of two things. First, I heard a quote the other day that said, being consistent will not guarantee success, but being inconsistent will guarantee that you don't succeed.
You're not successful.
So it's kind of like what you said, like, just be like, you can put a ton of intentionality into something that doesn't guarantee it's going to be great, but not putting it in guarantees it will not be great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I thought of is, we were talking earlier about this TV show Severance, and like that's another type of art, you know, making a TV show, making a movie. But with that show, like, part of the reason why I like it so much is because the more I look at, like, the more I watch it, the more I can see the intentionality that's gone into like almost every detail, and like that's what's separating it for me from other TV, because a lot of TV is just like, this is just thrown together, like, this is they didn't put a ton of work into this, and it's just like it's just TV trash, you know. And
how can we throw
I can get a
something
little
onto
laugh
that?
out of it here and there, but then but then sometimes a show comes along where it's like, man, the creators are like down to the last little detail, are being extremely intentional, and like that it just puts the work of art, whatever it is, on another level.
Yeah, it does.
So
Yep.
so for all the artists out there, be intentional and put intentionality into your works. That's what we're saying.
And be consistent, because consistency, it makes you better.
And don't give up. Don't give up. The creative people are the ones that tend to be the most critical of themselves, but you might be surprised if you can just sit down, even if you're feeling uninspired, and just write something, just paint something. Even if writing music isn't your thing, write out words, journal, things like that. You'd be surprised at what's in your brain that you didn't know was there. And oftentimes there's actually a spiritual connection to that too, because, you know, as an image bearer of God, you are a creative because he is the creative, and you'd be surprised at what he has put into you as far as creative potential goes. And I think it's just a really cool way of discovering another reflection of him in you.
Yeah, I think the point about not giving up is so important, especially for creative people. And like, because I think creative people like us live off of like the dopamine rush, you know, of life, and like everybody does, but it's very it's easy to create when you feel like it, and it is extremely difficult when you don't. And I think for a creative, like, just learning to be consistent and like, okay, I'm going to do it again, and it's going to be trash, and it's okay. And I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And
some of the tips. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, there's so many studies that show that the more creative you are on a consistent basis, the more creative you'll feel like being on a consistent basis. So if you can start to get into the habit of creating, even if it's like 10 minutes a day, you just do a sketch or write a lyric, like a line. The more you do that, the more you'll wake up the next day and want to do it, which is interesting. And something else that I've learned is if you have a space, that's your creative space, and every time you go into that space, you are creative every time, then whenever you go into that space, you're going to feel more like being creative, even if you didn't before you went into that space.
And I think another thing I've learned is, like, it's good also to kind of set like a parameter where it's not like I'm just going to do this indefinitely. Like, it's like I'm going to work on this thing and I'm going to do it every day for a month, and see if you can just do that instead of saying I'm just going to do this every day. But that's also helps, like, make it a little bit more like feasible. But and I think that also, tying back into what Jared said a minute ago about the image of God, like, yeah, God is the creator, we call him that, right? And consistency is another way to image God as well, because God didn't stop on day 3 because he got bored.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but finishing what you start is a good way to image the Lord too.
Yeah.
My laptop's about to die, so we are going to have to close it down here. Any last words?
Is that a threat?
Any final wisdom? I'll say it that way.
It's okay not to finish things sometimes.
Yeah.
That's also true.
Except this podcast. We have to finish that.
Yes.
Because this laptop's about to die.
It would be good if we could finish. Yeah. But no, that's true too. All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was fun. All right. Bye, everybody.